Seth Merrow. Loose on the Lead is sponsored by
Good morning. Welcome to Loose on the Lead, Sunday morning, the day after, up here at Saratoga. We are live from our Clare Court set. And again, another nice day. Yesterday, we were predicting a nice day. It actually did sprinkle a couple of times during the afternoon. But as I said during the handicappers report, nobody moved from their apron location. When you get set in on Travers Day, you don't move. So despite some sprinkles, everybody had a very nice day, great racing, and it was a really good Travers Day. And I think weather-wise, we're pretty similar today. We're overcast, but man, it is comfortable and nice. Good card today. The low rollers contest should be a lot of fun. And also a lot of fun here on Loose on the Lead because, again, we are joined via Zoom by my co-host and partner, Steve Byk. He's out in Vegas for the National Handicapping Championship. Steve, good morning.
Seth, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a fun Travers Day.
I like the shirt. I like the two-tone shirt.
Why, thank you.
And update us a little bit on the National Handicapping Championship so far. I was in the media charity event yesterday. Third to last race, I had the 25-1 shot at Del Mar that I thought was going to win down the whole stretch. Wound up second, which helped me with the place price. So I wound up 14th in the field of 58, but had that horse won, I wouldn't have won the contest, but had that horse won, there was a couple other people that also used it, but I would have wound up, I think, third in the group, but I still felt pretty good with the 14th place finish. But update us so far in the first 2 days of the NHC.
Well, we're down to the semifinal today that'll utilize 22 races. It's a little bit of a different, the semifinal is morphed a little bit. Now it's open, you pick 10 races, and that'll determine the 10 players that make it to the final table. And then from there, they're going to utilize Monmouth 10th, Saratoga 9th and 10th, 3 from Del Mar, 1 from Golden Gate. Yesterday, it was a very unusual day, it seemed, for the National Horse Players Championship. There were some prices early in the first few races in the eastern tracks, and then it got to be kind of a grinded out day where players I think had to adjust and make a decision to go after middle prices, whether they be 4-to-1s, 6-to-1s. There was a stretch of about 45 minutes where I think there were 6 straight 7-to-1 winners, horses that pay $15 and 6 to place. Those are very useful. And as a result, the board was pretty compact. There was not a lot of volatile movement. And that went all the way to the end, because when we got to Golden Gate and Del Mar for the late races, the fields were not enormous, and so there were few opportunities really to poach, anything that was going to be big leaps in the standings. The cut number that players had to get to ended up being $172, which is pretty typical, and there were players that were taking favorites, which is unusual to just try to get to that point by the time we hit that nightcap at Del Mar. The leader is Justin Mustari, who comes from a big family of horse players that are very familiar on the contest circuit, and that's quite a visual. You might be able to make out Justin Mustari at 283. Jose Arias, who was your 2014 winner, I believe, 2014, I think. He has a chance to become the first 2-time winner. Chris Goodall, the son of Richard and Sally Goodall. And again, a long line of players. Mustari is 28. I'm not even sure. Goodall can't be more than that. So we've got some young players, got a nice mix. Few familiar names as you go through that leaderboard. You also have last year's winner, Tom Goldsmith. He actually has got 2 tickets to play today to try to get to the final table. There's a young guy from New England named AJ Benton, who I got to know last year. In fact, he was the first player I interviewed before the contest even started. He's sitting 20th. He's a real blue collar guy, and I'm kind of rooting for AJ. He's here with his father. His father qualified this year. So a lot of nice stories as always. We look down the leaderboard, and I want to mention one. I know at least one local story. Again, a youngster. I think Kenny Livengood is 21, and he Seth, as you right away recognize, he's the backup caller at Saratoga Harness. So he made it late. He was kind of flirting with the cut line, and he made it. So it's been a great 3 days. The Thursday was the play-in. Friday and Saturday, your day 1, day 2, and now we're down to 56 players that will distill to 10. And by about 8:30 tonight, we'll crown a champion. $725,000 to the winner and the laurels as horse player of the year.
Great to hear the young local guy, as you say, the substitute announcer over at Saratoga Harness being a player. But I'm glad you mentioned AJ Benton. We met him last year because just before the pandemic, we were out there with the normal February, March time frame last year in 2020. We met AJ and interviewed him out there, and he talked about, I'm always in Saratoga for the meet, and I said, we'll have you on. And so last year, given that he didn't have credentials, he couldn't come on the set, but we went across the street to the Horseshoe and interviewed him last year. So I'm thrilled. I'm glad to see AJ back in the mix again this year. Just before we get to Saratoga yesterday and your thoughts on some of the stakes action, alert people if they want to follow, and as you say, it'll end later on this evening after racing ends here. So if people want to join in and listen to you this afternoon, and it's always a lot of fun, your coverage of the NHC. How can people check in? Do they go to stevebyk.com?
They go to stevebyk.com. It's your one-stop shopping for everything horse racing related. 2 o'clock to about 9, it looks like today, because there's an hour and a half break between the semifinal, determining the final table, and the start of the final table. So it looks like another 7 hours. My voice, really was in trouble on Friday, and I made it to the end yesterday. But after this, we'll try to rest it up for 4 hours, and we'll go about 2 to 9 today. You go to stevebyk.com. You see the listen live link, and of course, you can listen to the show anytime that way as well. 2 o'clock today, we'll get started.
Well, we wish you the best. I know you don't have Pete out there to help out this year either, so wish you the best. A little honey and whatnot, a little honey and lemon maybe, and we'll try to keep it limited this morning, but do want to get some of your thoughts on some of the stakes action yesterday, and we'll kind of work our way backwards from the Travers. I told the guys to pull up the entire replay of the Travers, so we'll watch them come out of the gate. Essential Quality is going to be the number 2 horse. Midnight Bourbon kind of grabs the lead early, the number 1 horse. Running third eventually is number 5, Miles D. 3 is Keep Me in Mind. 7 is King Fury. 6 is Masquerade. 4 is Dynamic 1. So you can follow along as we go around the track. But a lot of people were kind of anticipating Midnight Bourbon, maybe the one to catch. And if he was able to go out there and kind of lope along on the lead, maybe tough to reel in. Well, that's kind of the way it played out. And so you had to think on the backstretch, Midnight Bourbon is a real threat. 24 and change, 48 and change, 114 and change, 138. So he was not blazing out there on the front end and had a little daylight between himself and Essential Quality. But Essential Quality did what he always does. They got to the far turn. He started to grind it down, and then it was a nice ding-dong battle through the stretch with a neck margin at the end for the chalky favorite, Essential Quality, over Midnight Bourbon. A 107, a solid 107 buyer figure, and a final time of 201.96. A very good performance that I think you have to assume solidified and probably made it almost impossible for anyone to pass Essential Quality for the 3-year-old championship. Your thoughts on yesterday's Travers?
Yeah, he's 3-year-old champ. The race, there was really only one scenario in this race, which was Midnight Bourbon going to the lead, and would he be able to withstand Essential Quality? I mean, if Essential Quality was going to lose, we said this yesterday actually during the Travers was one of the mandatory races, that if Essential Quality was going to lose, the only scenario that was really envisionable was Midnight Bourbon wiring the field, and he came very close to doing that. He's terrific, and I hope he gets his big win. But Essential Quality and Luis Saez, of course, a big part of the story. Saez is just operating at a level that you see jockeys get into these zones. He flew to Charlestown on Friday afternoon near the end of the Saratoga card. He wins a $800,000 race, the Charlestown Classic there. On Art Collector, he's just absolutely making all the right choices. And the key to this, people are saying, oh, the fractions, he was low. He was not on an easy lead, Midnight Bourbon. Santana did get him a breather in the third quarter, but that's the only easy quarter. This is 10 furlongs. So yes, he got an easy third quarter breather, and then they came home fast. This was a very high quality 3-year-old classic performance from the top 2 finishers, and there's nothing else really to say. Essential Quality is nearly unbeaten. He is not flashy. He's not brilliant. He is just efficient and hard trying, and he dispatches foes. And it took a race like the Derby with 19 other horses to make it a little more difficult. Some people will say, oh, the one time he had adversity. But please stop with that. He got beat in the Derby. Lots of great horses got beat in the Derby. This is a really, really nice horse, and I had a conversation, actually, I forget who brought it up on the show yesterday, saying, is Essential Quality going to be your Breeders' Cup Classic favorite? And depending on what Nick's Go does, he may be. He'll be close to it, and he's as good a 3-year-old in terms of just a solid start after start performance as we've had in a little bit. And Midnight Bourbon is waiting in the wings to win a big race. It might come at a shorter distance, maybe Clark, Stephen Foster style, but this was the culmination of a day where we had a lot of close, exciting races that didn't necessarily produce prices. But they don't always have to. Sometimes it's nice to see the stars, perform at their best, and that's what this was.
And I said earlier, as the day ended, I was walking around and meeting people, and we were chatting. And as I walked out after,
you were being Seth Merrow. You were being Seth. You were reading and meeting and glad, and that's you.
I actually that kind of was my day yesterday, but. Then afterwards, when I walked out, I left the press box at about 8, and it was kind of in the gloaming. It was starting to get dark, but I met some people there as well. And the consensus was it was hard to make money, but you couldn't argue it was a fabulous day of racing. I mean, It's just the performances were great. I think we probably saw at least 3 champions, Essential Quality, Latruska, and I think Gamine probably as well. But we'll hit on those races as we go along. Let's get to the Sword Dancer, stretch run of the Sword Dancer. We'll watch him come down the stretch. I was surprised they made Gufo the favorite, but he lived up to it. He looked good here, separates himself, but a nice late run from Japan, the Aidan O'Brien runner, with Ryan Moore on board. And I said during the handicapping report, about 3 or 4 races earlier, I looked out of the press box and there was a jockey in a sport coat and otherwise his complete jockey outfit taking a walk around the entire turf course, and it was Ryan Moore. And it almost paid off here as, again, Japan comes up a neck short, but it was a nice performance in the sword dancer by Gufo. What were your thoughts?
My thought was that Ryan Moore got himself schooled by Joel Rosario. You got to be kidding. I mean, with this, Japan probably is best in this race by a wide margin. And Rosario not only is riding Gufo, but he's got Japan pinned down inside. And by the time Gufo had to go to grab the lead, Rosario had taken care of not just Gufo, but he had taken care of Japan and Ryan Moore. Ryan Moore got embarrassed a little bit by Joel Rosario here. That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
I got to admit, that part, I mean, I was amazed as I saw it unfold. I said, Moore's going to get absolutely stymied here, and he did.
Yeah, definitely Gufo got the jump, and as they say, held on the chart margin of a neck. Again, going back to the Travers, that was a 107 buyer, a 104 for Gufo, and a 101 for Latruska. And again, I would have to think this solidified an Eclipse Award as well. There's still plenty of year left, but boy, it's hard to get past Latruska. And we're going to watch the stretch run here. She's going to be the number 6 horse. And about the 8th pole, 16th pole, you think, is she going to get swallowed up? But she's just too good. Number 6, Latruska wins. Number 3, Bonnie South second. Number 5, Royal Flag third. And Dunbar Road runs 4th. But Latruska, now the Apple Blossom, the Phipps, the Fleur de Lis, and the Personal Ensign at Saratoga. It's just been a phenomenal season. Your thoughts on the Personal Ensign?
She was unbelievable. She was unbelievable. I was shocked that she was getting bet to the point of 3 to 5. And I thought that was insane. I could not believe that she kept repelling each challenge. In a lot of ways, I mean, it's tough to define which performance was the best of the day. In a lot of ways, I think this was. She's unbelievable, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that kept running at her, just kept repelling them. I thought at any point she could get headed, and it just wasn't happening. From a betting standpoint, I had Royal Flag used equally, and with Latruska. And that would have been that would have juiced up at least the pick 5. There was a lot of that actually all day long. That Christopher horse, Midnight Bourbon. I mean, the short prices kept prevailing, but there were moments where you thought, all right, we're gonna get a price home here, and then it just didn't happen. But Truska, I was just astounded at how good she is, how good she was yesterday.
Very impressive. And now let's go back to the 2 sprints, which for me were the highlight of the day. I thought they were both just ding-dong great races. We'll watch the Jerkins first. This is for the 3-year-olds sprinting. I like the 3-year-olds on turf. I talk about that a lot. But over the past few years, this 3-year-old sprinters on dirt has been a lot of fun as well. And this came down to the 2, as expected. Life is Good, who went off as the favorite by a little bit over Jackie's Warrior. Jackie's Warrior kind of cuts the corner. The number 2 horse, Jackie's Warrior, holding off Life is Good, who had the early lead and looked to live up to what we saw earlier as they came into the far turn and ran around the turn. But Jackie's Warrior just proved, man, he is some kind of horse, coming off the 102 buyer in the Amsterdam last time. Gets a solid 107 yesterday in the Jerkins. Your thoughts?
My thought is that Mike Smith probably was on an overnight flight back to Delano. I don't know what. I didn't really have. I used Jackie's Warrior, Life is Good, and Following C equally. I don't know what he was doing. I mean, how are you out in the 4 path?
No, yeah.
Recognize that the rail was strong. It's the 9th race of the day, and you thought that was off the turn, that was your best place to be. I mean, I didn't hear any quotes or anything from Todd Fletcher and the China Horse / our team, but I'd be apoplectic to have cost yourself a grade 1 in that setting. I don't know what to say. And I mean, and as for Rosario, I mean, Rosario just Luis Saez and Joel Rosario, they deserve all the accolades from yesterday. Rosario knew exactly where to be and where to stay, and that's how he beat Life is Good in here. Period. That was I thought it was embarrassing.
Interesting. It was a little surprising he was out that wide, left things open there on the inside, but it was a nice performance from the winner, certainly. And the winner also trained by Steve Asmussen, who trained Yao Pan, and we'll take a look at the Forego now, which was not just one of the highlights of the day, it'll be one of the highlights of the year. I went down, and we'll see it a little bit later, I went down and caught some video in the winner's circle afterwards, and Steve Asmussen said, I'm going to be watching this replay again and again. And I'm guessing a lot of fans, we're watching him come down the stretch here, look for the moment when Forenzi Fire gets a little upset and goes over and tries to take a chunk out. Man, this is crazy. So as I said, I think a lot of fans also watched the replay numerous times last night. Yao Pan over Forenzi Fire. Your thoughts on the Forego?
Well, regarding the savaging, it's not unusual. I mean, it happens. It happens on a pretty regular basis. You'll see a horse turn their head and like one time. I've never seen a prolonged, sustained attempt to savage, and not just that. I mean, he grabs a hold of the bridle and is yanking on the. I mean, it was astounding. And now that picture is that's the picture of yesterday. Put up the picture from 3 years ago when it was done to him. That's the Gallant Bob from 2018 that I immediately reached for and put on Twitter. That's where she told me to go. Stretch, and where she told me to go, savaged Forenzi Fire. So I thought it was the craziest. That was the first thing I thought of, is like, wait a minute, this is too crazy that now he's doing it here to Yoppen. It just shows you how competitive they are. It's terrific from that standpoint. And Yoppen was great. Forenzi Fire, I thought Mind Control was the more likely of the older horses to contend with Yoppen, and I used that chance it prominently, and I was trying to get him in as a price, and then actually had a nice try out of it. But Forenzi Fire ran a huge race in here, and Yoppen might be on track to get Asmussen another Sprinter of the Year title, whether it's Yoppen or Jackie's Warrior. They better look out for the horse on the West Coast that won the Pat O'Brien too, Ginobili, who has turned into a tiger with blinkers at Del Mar. Some good sprint action yesterday.
Yeah, CZ Rocket ran second out there, so as you say, good sprint action coast to coast. A 103 for Yao Pan. Steve, before we let you go, just want to pull up Gamine in the Ballerina. She was spectacular again at a chalky price. She winds up with a 104 buyer. Gamine's going to be the number one horse. Lake Avenue, a nice second at 18-1 for Bill Mott. Junior Alvarado. CC runs third. But Gamine, for the second year in the row, impresses up here at Saratoga.
Well, this is a more important win than you think, because her 3 wins so far this year, she has really not been as brilliant. And even here, she was more workmanlike and efficient, but she went fast. That's her first triple-digit figure of the year as a 4-year-old. So I'm sure Baffert's happy with this. You know, and this was the horse that Baffert indicated he specifically wanted to be able to run at Saratoga this summer, and you know why they went to court, because that's all he talked about was Gamine and the ballerina. So you knew this was important, and she came through. And here's Johnny, who by some definitions has not had the greatest summer, and yet another grade 1 win for him. He's had an okay summer from that standpoint, and actually he's up to 12% in terms of his wins. Maybe by next Monday, it won't seem like it was an off year for Johnny V up here. But Gamine and of course Valladera in the Boston spot too, and actually Jack Christopher, the first time starter in the race, 92 buyer for him. There was a lot of stars on display yesterday, and a lot of times that's satisfying in itself. People say we don't have enough stars and so forth. Well, you had a galaxy of them yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, you're a star for us here on Loose on the Lead. We appreciate you jumping in to Zoom with us next week, closing week. You'll be back live. In the meantime, as I say, a little honey, a little lemon, and we will tune in this afternoon to hear you lead us through the finals of the NHC. We appreciate the visit this morning.
Thanks a lot. And of course, I'm not a star at the magnitude of America's favorite TV pundit.
Seventh favorite. Seventh favorite. Appreciate it. Say hello to Tina and get home safe.
Tina's at home in Salem watching. Hey, baby.
Oh, okay. So she just took the California trip. She didn't make it to Vegas.
Oh no.
I thought you guys would be catching some shows or something.
She was Vegas Barbie. She was Vegas Barbie.
All right.
For about 72 hours, and then headed back.
Very good. All right, you travel safe. Back. We'll see you next week. Steve Byk out in Vegas again. Tune in stevebyk.com this afternoon. It's a lot of fun to listen to that. And again, the last few races will be after we wrap up here. So check it out and listen and see if maybe we get some locals in the mix as well. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will continue with Sunday morning, day after Loose on the Lead. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Malbrook. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the winner. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. You believe it? August 29th. Man, time flew, as it always does at Saratoga. But again, a nice day up here. If you're headed up, I think you will enjoy the afternoon, some great racing and whatnot. But yesterday, a fabulous day. And I popped up and down to the winner's circle and got a little video pretty much after every race. But I just pulled the comments after the more pertinent ones. We have, 6 minutes of tape here. The two sprints, the post-race comments from Steve Asmussen, and obviously there was a post-race press conference after the Travers, so I just got a little bit from Brad Cox as well. So, again, winner's circle and post-race press conference comments from some of the stakes action yesterday, Travers Day, right up here at Saratoga.
Line control, chance it towards the rail, doubly blessed on the outside. Mischievous Alex has gained ground down at the rail. Then it is Whitmore and Lexingtonian as they hit the furlong marker. Firenze Fire and Yopon. The two of them are battling it out here through the stretch. On the outside, Firenze Fire. On the inside, it is Yopon. Firenze Fire seemed to savage Yopon there in the stretch, and it's going to be Yopon who gets to the wire first. Firenze Fire was right there. The 7 furlongs in 1:21 and 3.
And the finish just made it that much more dramatic. I will watch that replay many a time in my future.
And it's got to be nice to finally get him.
Absolutely. Everybody's always known what a brilliant horse he is, the talent that he's shown, and for him to show up today on a stage, beat I think 5 Grade 1 winners in the race, and unbelievably good time.
And you've had horses with the Hayward Brots for quite a while, dating back to Posse. I mean,
the Heidelberg, the Texas connection of the Heidelbergs and the Estons, I can't say enough about what they've done for me. My first Grade 1 winner at Saratoga was with Lady Tack, one of theirs. So it's great to be back in the winner's circle.
you've been around a long time. You ever had a race like that?
To witness one or to watch a clip of one or to anything, but in a Grade 1 at Saratoga with the 2 horses on the lead, I mean that will be memorable.
What were you thinking watching it as it transpired?
Honestly, I watched the racetrack from the apron down the stretch. I was worried he was going to get Ricardo. I thought he was biting at Ricardo. Watching it live, I mean, we've had some not ideal finishes this year, so we're not there until you get to the wire, you know?
They are at the top of the stretch. Life is good. Room on the inside for Jackie's Warrior. And now here he comes. Here comes Jackie's Warrior up the inside to take over the lead from Life is Good. There's an 1/8 of a mile to the finish. Jackie's Warrior. Life is Good. Not done yet on the outside. A 16th to the finish. It's Jackie's Warrior. Life is Good. The two of them will battle it out to the finish in the Allen Jerkins. And it's going to be Jackie's Warrior by a head.
Jackie was away clean. He's a very comfortable horse. You know, I mean, he's not after anything. He's just a big, fast horse. Joel's got a tremendous amount of confidence in him, and he was traveling nicely. He wasn't pulling against him or anything. They threw up 44 flat. They were rolling right along. They separated from the others and drove to the wire.
Was there any concern that maybe this Life is Good is just some?
No. When Life is Good was training up here, there was concern. You know, I mean, when he was jogging when we first got up here, there was concern. We know who he is, you know. Obviously, Jackie continues to make us proud.
How gutsy is this horse?
No, he's incredible. I mean, that's I think the thing that you just love about him so much is just his demeanor in which he goes about everything that he does. You know, it's just we breezed Yao Pan and Jackie together 12, 13 days ago, and the way that they handled it and the way that they came back from it, and just gives you all kinds of confidence. And I think they ran their race and showed their Grade 1 ability against great fields. And on Travers, what did you do?
Midnight Bourbon, the leader. Essential Quality. And on the outside, Miles D now makes a run. Dynamic One down towards the rail in 4th. Then Keep Me in Mind. Mask Parade in the clear on the far outside. And King Fury. They are coming for the top of the stretch in the run Happy Travers. And it is Midnight Bourbon and Essential Quality. And now their heads apart as they head for home with the roar of the Saratoga crowd. It is Essential Quality on the outside of Midnight Bourbon. The two of them are right together inside the 8th pole. Essential Quality narrowly. Midnight Bourbon continues to battle on. They're coming down for the finish. It is Essential Quality and Midnight Bourbon. Essential Quality has won the Run Happy Travers. He won the Belmont with class. He wins the Run Happy Travers with style.
The true champion. That's what it says. That whole group from last year, Essential Quality, Hot Rod Charlie, Keep Me in Mind are all been very durable horses that perform well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and transfer their form at 3, which says a lot about this crop. And very fortunate to be in this position. Very happy for Sheikh Mohammed and Hogadoff, the team, Jimmy Bell, Dan Price. It's a tremendous organization that's put so much into the game, and this horse has rewarded them in a big way, and just a fantastic horse, and world-class operation. They have a world-class horse here. He's a fantastic animal.
Brad, for him to do what he's done is one thing, but for him to do it against such what appears to be a really stellar crop of 3-year-olds, what does that say about how good this horse is?
He's a very good colt. Just very fortunate to have the honor to train him, and he's just a very sound, sturdy, very intelligent horse. That's brings it every time. And Jimmy was just talking about observing him there on the track after the race. I mean, almost as if he didn't even know he just run. He just never really exhausted or fatigued, or just a tremendous horse.
Had Brad Coxon. Brian had him in earlier this week, obviously, pre-Travers. I talked to him a little earlier in the meet before the Jim Dandy, and so appreciate Brad giving us the time. And again, that was the post-race press conference, and the two winner's circle comments from Steve Asmussen. It was interesting, given that those were two of the really fun races of the day. The savaging event in the one that ended up a ding-dong finish, and then a ding-dong finish in the other sprint also. And it was great to hear Steve, say, I'm going to watch that replay again and again, as I noted earlier, probably a lot of fans already have over the past 12 hours or so. All right, we will head into, as we wrap up the show, I'll come back on a little bit later and officially wrap it up. But last week we showed part 1 of the Steve Byk profile. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, before Steve left town, just set a couple chairs out here in Clare Court, and I thought, let's take an opportunity to interview you, I said to Steve, and tell people how you got into the radio side of things. And he's got the great DT forum, Derby Trail forum, and I think more of today is going to talk about DT stables and how he got into the horse racing side of the game, which is kind of interesting because not only does the DT stable own horses, but Steve's now bred a few horses as well. And so as a pundit, he brings all that knowledge to his work on the radio as well, whereas he has now become involved in really all facets of the game. So again, part 2 of our interview with my co-host, Steve Byk. Very special place, and I will ask you to relate the most special part, I would think, of the barbecue, because, of course, your beautiful wife, Tina, was at a mutual window before you each knew each other. She's a teacher most of the year, and she would spend her summers up here, out in those mutual windows, out by the barbecue. Talk about meeting Tina and then winding up married to your lovely wife.
That's the story. She was working in the pavilion, they call that, and I started to bet with her on a regular basis. She could tell you a funny story about drawing me to her window, but then from that point, 2006-7, started to inquire and wonder about getting together and maybe a dinner or something out. And she was actually, the first year she was shy, and she was actually in the process of getting a divorce. So then it was the next summer, really. That was 2006. 2007, I sensed more of an openness to going out. We ended up together, and we kind of eloped 10 years ago. In fact, September. We'll be married 10 years. We went up to Alexandria Bay, went up to the St. Lawrence Seaway, and on my mother's birthday. My mother got to know her before my mother died, and adored her. My mother had not approved a single prospective wife that I had ever, for years and years. She basically chased a lot of them away. But Tina she liked, and got the seal of approval. So I did not expect at the age of, at that point, 50, to get married. I thought that train had long past the station.
Well, you scored. It was another win at the racetrack for you.
The biggest win ever, actually. It's the biggest IRS ticket ever.
And let's get back to the radio show because, as you mentioned, you started with J.J. Gracie. And I remember he was one of the first radio shows that was on the internet. He and his girlfriend were doing it from Florida, and you could pull it on the internet.
Yeah.
And then I remember when you showed up on the show and the kind of the transition there. Talk a little bit about how once you took over in Sirius and XM and how it has evolved over the years.
It was all kind of fortuitous, I think. John Parada himself, John had heard them. John was living down in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. John heard them, I think, on that, there was local Florida radio. That JJ and Sam, Anita St. Clair, JJ and Sam were doing a Talking Horses show. And John had the relationship with Steve Cohen at WFAN, and Steve, through Francesa actually, because John, and this all lynches back to Siaka, because John had horses with Gary. Gary had horses for Mike Francesa, and I forget who his partner was at the time on the horses. But anyway, Gary was training. Gary introduced John Parada to Mike Francesa. And it all kind of plays together. But John heard them on South Florida radio, went to Steve Cohen at FAN and said, are you interested in a horse racing network? And John called it the Thoroughbred Racing Radio Network. And they said, yeah, absolutely. So the next thing you know, there's a 4 to 7 show right at the beginning of Sirius's development, July of 2005. And so it's one of the oldest shows on the network, dating to the network's origins. And I told you how I got plugged in, which was kind of crazy. And that was it. I mean, they've been committed to racing in one way or another, really from the start. They've added all different things. At one point, HRTV or TVG's audio feed. They added HRRN stuff as well. I mean, there's been a commitment to racing from SiriusXM that has really been good, and it predates the television networks. And it's all Steve Cohen deserves a ton of the credit, because he likes the game. He's not, he comes up here, he'll come up for a weekend. In fact, usually comes up around Alabama for 2-3 days. They've been phenomenal and have been unflagging in their support of racing, to their credit. And I think they've had a loyal subscription base because of it. Whenever our channel, we haven't had a channel change in years, but whenever we would get a channel change, people would go crazy. And that also included the show being moved. They called me at one point and they said, we're having a situation and we need the channel for, they made some commitment to some radio simulcasting that they were doing with ESPN and whatnot. And they said, we don't have room for the 4 to 7. And I said to them, how about a morning show? They said, would you do a morning show? I said, yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell you, to me, it's been a godsend in a lot of ways, because the 4 to 7, we would just basically take races and get some interviews and do some handicapping, which is all fun and great, but it's not what the show evolved into by force of content. I didn't have those radio, simulcast races to rely on as filler. So the show basically became what I call it now, racing's news magazine, daily, a Today Show kind of a format, where were ripped from today's headlines, all the news and titles, but all the different kinds of things that anybody in the industry would be interested in. And that is a diverse set of topics, whether it's horse health, whether it's aftercare, whether it's retraining, sales, obviously, pedigree work, virtually everything you can imagine folded in with the previews and the recaps and the handicapping. It really, I think, has made the show what I'd like to think it is, which is a comprehensive, catch-all for the industry, for the game.
And you do a great job. And for folks who know that we co-host together, I'm over on the front side here at Saratoga. Get a lot of feedback on you and the radio show. People appreciate it. I've done the radio show with you live here. You're here some mornings as well during the season, and people will walk by and they really like the show. So you've been doing a great job, obviously, and a lot of great feedback from racing fans and the industry as well. So you've done a great job there. But let people know who may not be aware, you do it from your house up in Greenwich, and also give a little bit of a tip of the cap to your tech guy, Casey.
Well, Casey G was hired at some point. We needed an engineer down in Florida. The original engineer was leaving, and Casey answered an ad. John hired him. I mean, it was still at the point where we were in the original studio on 17th Street Causeway in Fort Lauderdale. And then at the point where John kind of walked away, Casey started his own production studio and used the show as sort of the anchor product. He's got three sound studios that he works out of that he's built from nothing now in Margate. Casey's, we've been together. I mean, the show dates back to 2005. I'm going to guess Casey signed on in 2007, maybe even 2006. So the 15 years that the show's had my name on it, we've been together. And he does an amazing job because he does more than what a typically there's a sound engineer that's just doing the dials. He's calling the guests and the regulars and setting them up, and then he's taking the breaks. I mean, then he and I are communicating. I'm texting back and forth with him. It's a bare bones. I mean, it really is a very simple operation. And I can now, one thing that's happened is I can plug into any internet service line. So it's made the show easy to take on the road. And we've done more of that. And I love doing that. We've done more of that in the last 6 years. I don't even know how long it's been since we didn't have to rely on ISDN lines, the old copper wire lines. Yeah. So now, I mean, we'll broadcast from Florida, from New Orleans, from Arkansas, from California. We'll go basically anywhere. Vegas, the NHC. We pretty much go everywhere. Downstate, the Triple Crown event. I can go anywhere.
As I say, though, on a daily basis, you're in your house because every once in a while there'll be a commercial break that's a little long, and you're downstairs getting a UPS package.
That'll happen. We're also at the mercy, frankly, of the cable service company too. I mean, they have hiccups that are just as frustrating for anybody. I mean, when your internet service goes down, well, actually, Casey down with Comcast down in Florida and Spectrum up here. It affects us too, and it's frustrating. I mean, but frankly, it's cheaper than it used to be. It used to cost $300, $500 a month just for that service. But for Casey and I, now it's probably, I don't know. I mean, it's less than $100. It's probably $70, $80 a month by comparison, and the flexibility. So if there's the occasional service hiccup, it's worth it for everything else that the benefit has been. But yeah, I'm sitting at my desk at home, in the office there. I've got my library of industry material at my disposal, and it's much simpler than it sounds. I think it comes off as some highly engineered and technical wizardry, but it's really me with with a handful of reference books.
And again, you do a great job, and everybody appreciates it, including industry people as well. But before we let you go, I want to touch on another branch of the game that you've gotten into with DT Stables. Gary Siak has some of your horses. You mentioned Chuck Simon early on. Talk about getting into the ownership side of the game. Now you're breeding as well, and relate to how that helps you on the radio side, giving you a new perspective into the game.
Well, I thought it was important at a certain point. The idea came from a friend, Matt Duggar, on Derby Trail. Matt said, let's claim a horse. Okay. So next thing you know, we're gathering $500 per head, and I had talked to Chuck, and Chuck said, all right, I'll handle the expenses, but I'll take the the whatever earnings. And so we raised $25,000 at $500 a clip, no expenses, sort of the club concept. Yeah. And Chuck, we started to scout for a horse. And Chuck called me and he said, there's a horse in the February sale, the Phasig horse of racing age sale, that might be okay. She's got a decent record. She's a 4-year-old, and I can't remember. She might have been a 3-year-old, and they put her in this sale. So I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Hip, whatever." He said, "She's a came home out of a Bates Motel mare." Okay. So I go and look at the catalog, and the mare is Mysterious Mall, and I couldn't believe it. The partnership group that I had gotten to know was Pont Street Stables. I'd gotten friendly with Dr. John Cheros and with Stanley Ettinger and a number of their partners, Vince and Maureen. And Mysterious Mall was their horse. And so here's her, I think her second or third foal. I came home, and Chuck picks her out of a catalog. I thought, this is too weird. This is just too bizarre. And Phil and I, my buddy Phil Melnick, we had gone and we had seen Mysterious Mall run, including when she won down at Laurel. She won the Martha Washington. And we were there. It just was really strange to me that this is the horse that Chuck picks out. So we get her in the sale for $23,000. And she was very nice. And Chuck starts training on her, and we ran her in a turf race at Keeneland, and she didn't run well. And Chuck said, I want to put her back on the dirt. So we came back, we ran to Churchill, she ran second. We go to Arlington, and she ran second again. And these are an allowance, I think maybe a 50, there was a 50 non-2. And then we tried her in a couple of allowance races, just as getting beat. McPeak beat us narrowly at Churchill. Neil Howard beat us with a good mare at Arlington. Then we came here, and she went off favored at Saratoga early in that summer. And Calvin Burrell actually rode her. And she was leading at the head of the stretch and then faded, ended up fourth. And then started to have a problem. And she actually was having a problem the whole time that developed. She had a growth in the back of her heel. And then when she got up here, suddenly it started to blossom, started to get big. And it became a real issue. And it almost killed her, actually, later on. But it got us started. And she came she didn't win for us, which was too bad. And then after losing a year, we started to bring her back. She came this close to making it all the way back, and then she blew a suspensory, which was really too bad. But it got us going. We ended up then claiming a Chester House mare named Kickin' and Screamin', and she got us our first win, which was really exciting, and it came at Arlington. I talked to John Dooley about it on Friday, actually. And anyway, we started doing different things. We bought some yearlings. We bought some 2-year-old training types, different things. Bought a weanling that ended up basically developed a horse that became Ausable Chasm, which was our first win here. And I thought it was important. I mean, we did it for fun to begin with, but then with my involvement with the show, I thought it was very important that we experience and have skin in the game and, you know, be able to talk to the experiences that everybody that has a stakeholder role goes through. And that includes buying horses at auction and breeding horses. And it's come with all of the pitfalls that all of that involves, and the disappointments, you know, the injuries, and frankly, the death of foals, which is excruciating. It's unlike any other pain that you'll have. I suppose the only thing worse would be losing a horse in action, a fatality in race. But you know, we had a beautiful, I mean, I wanted a Disco Rico in the worst way. We rescued a horse that Gary had campaigned, my Nina Rose, and she delivered an incredible Disco Rico that ended up getting rotococcus. So all the things that you could possibly experience, we've been through. And so when we talk about it on the radio, it's not speculative, it's from experience. And I think that is very valuable, even as frustrating as it's been. And you know, we've had we've had 35 wins maybe in 10, 12, whatever it is, 14 years. But the satisfaction has been, we've brought literally a couple hundred people into the game in an introductory manner. And it includes people that have gone on, you know, to own 100% and to own in bigger partnership groups. Ed Kelly is a guy that got involved with us for $500 and ultimately ended up involved in West Point and was in Always Dreaming. And I from what I recall and from what Ed has told me later on, I mean, I came across the infield, you know, after Always Dreaming won the Derby, and when Ed came across for the photo, I was one of the first people that he actually saw on the other side, and having him thank me for getting him involved, I mean, that is a satisfaction that's very different from, you know, winning races. We've won 2 races here. We've won races really, I think, in a dozen different racetracks. And we've won at Turfway, we've won at Philly, Delaware, Gulfstream, Finger Lakes, all 3 New York tracks, obviously. So there's so many different ways to take pleasure in the game. You know, we've won with a homebred, with Ausable, and with Carlisle Bell, the daughter of Ausable Chasm. So second generation, ostensibly. There's so many different things that the game provides as an entree to a thrill that is different from any other kinds of fandom thrills. And whether you experience it strictly as a bettor and you know, cashing tickets, I mean, that's a certain thrill. Then there's, you know, the subsequent ways to get involved. It's unlike anything else.
And I agree completely. It gives you a unique perspective as a host talking about the game, to have been through all facets of the game. Yeah. I think that's an important aspect that makes the show a little bit special as well. But I thought we would take some time, just introduce people to the background and how you got into the radio side of things, and go over a little of the Derby Trail Forum, your ownership of the DT stables. Appreciate the time, and good luck going forward.
I appreciate it, and thank everybody that tunes in to the radio show, that enjoys us together on television. Can't thank you enough. Provided plenty of publicity for me when I was, you know, when I was starting out. You put stuff, you know, on Equidaily, and most of all, thank you for putting up with my hijinks for years and years, because, you know, as I say, on the radio, invariably I'm a straight man for all kinds of people, including Andy Serling and so forth. But when we're together on television, you're the straight man. I get to tee off and get to act like a maniac. So you're a great sport.
All makes it fun. Steve, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Seth.
So there was part one last week, part two this week. The history of Byk. Again, I thought it'd be interesting just to go over with 2 weeks out of town. We taped that a couple of weeks back, right out here in Clare Court, but go over how he got into the radio game and how he got onto the horse racing side of things, now a little bit of breeding as well, and much, much more. The history of Byk, part two, this morning. A little bit before that, we had some comments from the winner's circle, and as I say, it was fun to hear Steve Asmussen kind of commenting on the savaging incident in the race and said, I'm going to watch that replay a bunch of times. We all have, Steve, so you're right in the ballpark there. And live from Vegas, our friend Steve Byk started the show via Zoom. And again, you can listen to him cover the National Handicapping Championship. If you go to stevebyk.com, there's a listen live button, and he will be covering all the action out there with some local folks involved. And as he mentioned, I pulled up the leaderboard. Yes, sitting 20th, A.J. Benton, who we had talked to last year when we were out there live in that February to March period. But then he was at Saratoga last summer as well, and we caught up with him also. I want to say we talked to him, excuse me, last year. He was maybe the day one or the day two leader. So he goes into today sitting 20th. So root for one of our show guests in the past, A.J. Benton. Some locals involved as well up there. Always rooting for the locals to do nicely out at Vegas in the National Handicapping Championship. Next year, I think we're going to be more in the more proper February to March kind of an area for the NHC, and perhaps we will be back out covering it as well, because it's always been a lot of fun. Obviously, this year with the overlap on Travers weekend, that was not going to happen, but you can catch up to the action listening to Byk today. All right, going to wrap it up. Don't forget low rollers on the front side Sundays and Thursdays, so you still have a few opportunities left. And as I say, if you're not a contest person, this is a great way to get in. I guarantee you'll have fun. Everybody who has come up to me over the past few years and said, I took your advice and played the low rollers, has said it is a lot of fun. You put in $40, they take $10 out for the prize pool, and you get a card to play with that has $30 loaded on. During the afternoon, you make 5 $2 win, place, and show bets. The money you accumulate on the card is yours to keep. But if you wind up at the top, it depends on how many players are in the contest. But the top 5, 7, you can win a decent little amount of money to make your day very profitable, lucrative, and fun. Low rollers contest over there. And as I say, if you then get into contests, we have the tourney bets contests that are available pretty regularly via capitalotb.com, so you can check those out as well. Speaking of Capital OTB today, Clubhouse Racebook, it's a pick four and a match bet promotion. If you choose the Racebook as your venue to watch the races today, you can take advantage of those extras as well down there, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Here at the racetrack, again, seems very similar to yesterday in that little bit overcast, but boy, temperature-wise, humidity's out, temperature very comfortable, and a great day of racing and a nice card, and maybe hopefully some more some opportunities to make a little more money than yesterday. Yesterday was very chalky, certainly, but you cannot argue it was a fabulous, fabulous day of racing. Hopefully you had a chance to come up or watch it here on the network and enjoy it, because those are races that will clearly play into the year-end championships. Gamine and Essential Quality, Latruska, all really fabulous. And then just some other oddities and fun that made it a very special afternoon. So hopefully you had a great time. Still 7 days of racing left, including today and next week's 6-day week, with Labor Day winding up the season. But we will wind up today's edition of Loose on the Lead. And the morning programming for this week, we'll be back, obviously, on Wednesday morning, kicking things off on Wednesday, 9 a.m., the Handicappers Aboard, 10 a.m., Racing Across America. I believe our colleague Brian Nadeau back in. I think he hops on the jet plane maybe tomorrow or the next day, gets back up here after his weekend stint down at Gulfstream. So we'll look forward to him coming back in Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., and we'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.